How are you, friends? Welcome to this new episode. Today we return to the roots with a series of experiences that I'm sure will leave you surprised because they happened on routes where maybe you were at some point. Now we begin with this new paranormal story. Enjoy it. Route 3, without a doubt, is one of the most mysterious we have in our country. Not just on a whim. There are countless testimonies about different unexplained experiences, encounters with beings that bear no resemblance to the local fauna. Sightings, UFOs on the Atlantic coasts, episodes where entire families traveling on this route advance hundreds of kilometers in a single instant. Truck drivers abducted in the middle of the night. These are just a few of the many that are known, and there are surely many more of which we will never be aware. Today we are going to learn about two cases that happened on this route, where the unexplainable once again takes center stage. A few weeks ago, I watched and listened to a video on the channel where a story was told about a family that experienced a very strange event on Route 3, and coincidentally near Comodoro Rivadavia where I live. But not only did it catch my attention that this happened near my house, it mobilized me to realize that this family was not the only one to experience something strange. Because we also experienced something hard to believe, because it doesn't make any sense.
In my case, we also experienced something very particular on the road after this happened. Well, for an extended period, I'm looking for some answer that I couldn't find, and as I tell you, I heard this
experience and wanted to share it. Before we begin, I want to discuss some details to help whoever is listening to put things into context and understand why I made some decisions during the handling. We are from Comodoro Rivadavia and we're returning from a family vacation in Santiago del Estero. The trip was quite normal, but when we arrived in La Pampa, I don't remember the exact route at this moment. I think it was 35. We encountered a lot of trucks. Of course, we were in harvest season. This is quite normal, but we hadn't considered it and it was a surprise. At that moment, something happened that scared us a lot. I saw that on the opposite hand, a truck was zigzagging quite a bit. It was crossing from one lane to another. Something unfortunately normal because many people drive very tired and even more so when the job demands it. But that's another issue. This truck at one point returns to its lane. There, I relax. And almost missing. 100 meters or less, a very short distance for two vehicles coming in opposite directions. He goes against traffic again. If I continued there, we would crash head-on. The shoulder was not an option because this truck was just biting the shoulder, so I interpreted that it would hit me. Therefore, I had no choice but to go into the opposite lane. Now I was the one going against traffic. This wouldn't be a problem, because I would immediately return to my lane. But just at that moment, and when I crossed, another truck was coming head-on down the road. Luckily, this other driver moved over a bit and gave me room to pass, and we practically saved ourselves by a miracle.
Why am I telling you this? Not to mention the scare we got. Well, about the mess I made later at a police station because of this driver's behavior. This happened and we were quite shaken by how dangerous the route was. We continued the journey. It was already night. We were close to reaching the city of Comodoro Rivadavia, Route 3. We were missing. I estimate that 150 kilometers, 200 kilometers of night field. There was no one on the road.
And at one point the road lights up in a tremendous way. The first thing I thought was that I had some truck behind me with the lights on. So I moved my head a little forward so the mirrors wouldn't dazzle me, but it wasn't the solution. We realized that this light was coming from all sides. It was above the car, on the sides, behind and even ahead, because you couldn't see much more than the hood. It was horrible and a very tense moment because you have to imagine that driving at a high speed and suddenly not being able to see the road is tremendous. To understand all of this, I have to explain that if you looked outside, you saw nothing but an extremely bright white light, like I've never seen in my life before. You couldn't distinguish sky, road, field, nothing. I know it sounds incredible, and that's exactly why I've rarely told it, but it happened just as I'm telling you. I pressed the brake very slowly to signal to the one coming behind with these lights that I was reducing speed. Finally, I put on the hazard lights and this light was still there. There was absolutely no change, and we in the car kept asking ourselves what was going on. The decision I made was to start getting off Route 3. Very gently, I started turning to my right, with the idea of feeling the shoulder with the vehicle. And once there, yes, brake when we are more secure. Remember that I was driving completely blind. So, after an endless moment, certainly, because of the fear I was going through, all four wheels were on the shoulder, I began to brake the car. And when do we stop to zero? Exactly at that moment, this light disappeared and the landscape was the same, again, that we've known forever. My partner was silent and terrified, didn't know what to do because clearly they didn't understand what had happened either. I immediately went down and looked in all directions, finding absolutely nothing. It was impossible that if a van, a truck, or a car was responsible for this, it would have disappeared in a second. And another very important detail is that at no time was a single engine noise heard, neither when we encountered this light nor even after going down. Looking for an answer?
We traveled on until reaching Comodoro Rivadavia. 2 weeks later, I was constantly thinking and looking at the diary of what it could have been, because I swear I thought of all the possible options. I thought, well, just then a meteorite was passing by and it just lit up our path, and that's what happened. But usually when meteorites pass by, the brightness of it can be seen from afar. I checked local newspapers and channels, but found no reports of news. There was nothing. The radio, nobody mentioned anything about such an event. Then I started to think, well, someone who at that time of night started to play some heavy prank. But it doesn't make sense because to illuminate in such a way, you need a very large reflector, you need a very large generator. And from the right, you can't because it's a hill with a very steep slope. I mean, there's no way to hold a vehicle there. And down the ravine is a place where there are no roads. It's a very rugged terrain. And even if you have a 4x4 truck, it's not easy to get down there. Like to project with a spotlight towards the route, what if I could get down there? What's the point of going all the way there and playing a prank on? Doesn't make sense for a car to pass by that route. And that always kept going around in my head until I heard this experience from this family that was close to Comodoro Rivadavia.
Another short case, but no less interesting, was that of Fabian, a cycle traveler from Bahia Blanca, who, camping on the side of Route 3, experienced something that left him speechless. With a lot of fear, and that put his project of reaching Ushuaia by pedaling, as he had planned, at risk. It happened in the year 2007. He had set off with a southern course and his first goal was to reach Tierra del Fuego. His means of transportation was a bicycle, and he carried with him everything necessary to be able to dress, bathe, camp, cook, and even tools for the unforeseen events that the bicycle would surely present. The thing was that by the month of November, he was going down Route 3. He had left from Radatili, right next to Comodoro Rivadavia, and that day his goal was to reach Caleta, Olivia, but it was literally impossible because the winds simply would not let him advance. About 20 kilometers from his destination, he got off his bike, went towards the coast, a few kilometers from the route, and looked for a place to spend the night, because it was more than evident that he was not going to be able to continue. He pitched the tent, ate, and slept. That night, something out of the ordinary happened to Fabian, which, according to him, endangered the continuation of his journey. At one point, he woke up because the tent was completely lit up, and not only that, when he was about to open the zipper and look outside, something prevented him. When he tried to get up, an invisible force pushed him to the ground and kept him partially seated for a while. Outside there was this intense white light, somewhat bluish, and you could hear that there were at least 2 people walking beside the tent. He didn't see any shadows or anything like that, but he could hear everything. And what scared Fabian the most was this force, or whatever it's called, that when he wanted to get out, wanted to get up, it prevented him. He never knew how much time passed, how long he was like that, but once the light went out immediately, he was able to move, open the zipper, and find himself in a completely empty place. It was quite visible because of the moon. At one point he thought maybe it was people who were playing a joke on him, or maybe some ship that just illuminated the coast with some kind of spotlight. But no, because beyond any kind of perfectly possible idea, what happened inside the tent surpassed anything imaginable. He couldn't sleep anymore, and the next day, beyond the winds and fatigue, he went to Caleta, Olivia, where he thought a lot about everything that had happened. Finally, the journey continued for several more months, and according to Fabian, nothing strange ever happened to him again, beyond camping in hundreds of totally inhospitable places. But he did hear about several similar cases, and interestingly, the vast majority, according to him, and he takes it as a kind of pattern. They occurred near the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. The question is why?
Hello, Commander. I wanted to share my experience. I had just seen a video that had passed on Route 5 near the Glaucon train. And what happened to me, I'm a truck driver. I travel from Entre Rios to Neuquén to Vaca Muerta. And one night this past summer, around February, March, one night, it had been a very hot day and I arrived tired, very tired at the Trencalacan roundabout, and I stopped to sleep a bit with the windows down. I ate something I had in the cooler and I lay down, and as soon as I fall asleep I feel people walking next to the truck. I wake up thinking someone wanted to steal something from me, and I peek out because the window was really low. No one. I thought the product of fatigue had confused me. I go back to sleep again. I pass by the truck. I shout again. The noises end and I pass by again. The third time I get off, I check under the truck on the sides. There was no place to hide. Yes. If it had been a joke, people would have seen them. Besides, in front of the roundabout is the highway police and a service station about 100 meters away. But it was impossible for anyone to be there, as they didn't have time to escape. So it happened to me again there, the fifth time it happens to me. I carry a deck chair tied in the tray that I carry, and I feel that they snatch it. They shake it as if to wake me up. I get off, I check again, there was nothing, and I had no other choice but to go to sleep in the next town to Pellegrini. And, well, I don't think that someone told me that I didn't have to sleep there. It was very strange.